The vast chamber of the Galactic Alliance shimmered under the glow of 1,000 hovering lights. Representatives from more than 50 alien civilizations filled the circular hall, their voices blending into a sea of languages, sounds, and movements. The air was thick with the scent of ozone, metallic dust, and alien perfumes. Yet amidst all this cosmic grandeur, one small figure sat quietly near the center, Amara, the only human in the room. Amara was not a soldier, nor a scientist of renown. She was a cultural observer, a quiet listener from Earth. Her role was simple: to attend meetings, take notes, and learn how humanity could adapt to this galaxy full of advanced species. She had never expected to speak in such gatherings. No one from Earth ever did. Humans had joined the Alliance just 20 years ago, and though they had made progress, they were still seen as the newcomers, young, naive, and too emotional. The galaxy's elder species often found humans amusing. They called them the Curious Ones, a name that sounded kind but carried a tone of gentle mockery. Today's meeting was different. It was about something critical: the origin equation, an ancient riddle that the greatest minds across galaxies had failed to solve for centuries. The question of who first created the seed of life across the stars. Entire civilizations had vanished while chasing that answer. The Council's lead speaker, a towering crystalline being named Veltor, began the discussion in his deep, echoing tone. "Esteemed members of the Alliance," he said, his voice vibrating through the metallic floor. "Today we revisit the origin equation. For over 3,000 galactic cycles, we have searched for the truth behind the first spark. Perhaps today we will decide whether to end this pursuit or continue it." Murmurs followed. Some species nodded with agreement. Others flicked their limbs or emitted light pulses of disapproval. Amara simply listened, eyes wide, her stylus quietly tapping on her digital pad. As each representative took turns, the discussion grew louder. Some claimed the origin was a myth. Others argued it was the work of an extinct godlike race. But none had proof. For Amara, the more they spoke, the less sense it made. The hall was full of great beings who could bend light, shape gravity, and live for millennia, yet none could answer the simplest question: where did we all come from? After several hours, Veltor turned his glowing eyes toward Amara. "Representative of Earth," he said in a deep hum, "you have been silent. Humans are known for their curiosity. Do you have a thought on the origin equation?" The room chuckled softly. A few alien delegates exchanged glances. It was rare for anyone to invite a human to speak at all. Amara's heart pounded. She hesitated, her mind racing. She wasn't supposed to speak, but the eyes of the entire chamber were on her. I don't know if I have an answer," she said softly, her voice trembling. "But maybe I have a question." "A question?" Veltor echoed, amused. "Very well, human. Speak your question." Amara stood, holding her pad close to her chest. She looked around the hall, at creatures older than human civilization itself, and spoke in a calm, honest tone. "You all ask who created life first," she said. "But has anyone ever asked why?" The room went silent. The soft hum of translation devices stopped. The whispers vanished. Even the glowing light seemed to dim. The laughter that had followed her introduction earlier faded into complete stillness. Veltor tilted his crystalline head. "Explain your question," he said, his tone now serious. Amara swallowed nervously. "Everyone is looking for the first creator," she continued, as if knowing who started life would make us feel safe or powerful. "But maybe the real question isn't who made us, but why life keeps making itself. Maybe it's not about finding one beginning. Maybe it's about understanding the purpose of existence." Her words echoed softly through the chamber. She wasn't trying to be profound. It was simply what she felt, a simple, innocent thought. Yet somehow it touched something deep in every being present. One of the aquatic delegates, shimmering within a water-filled suit, whispered through its translator, "You mean life itself has a reason beyond creation?" Amara nodded slightly. "Maybe life isn't something that was made once. Maybe it's something that keeps choosing to exist and over, even when it shouldn't. Maybe that's the real mystery." No one moved for several seconds. Then the oldest being in the room, the Chronarch of Vex, spoke for the first time in centuries. His voice sounded like time itself shifting. "For thousands of cycles we searched for a creator," he said slowly. "But never did we question the will of life itself. This, Human child asks what none of us have dared. The atmosphere changed. The conversation that followed was no longer a debate but a quiet exploration. Ancient races that had once argued over facts now spoke of meaning. Questions about purpose, continuity, and the self-replicating nature of consciousness filled the air. It was as if Amara's small voice had unlocked a door they didn't know existed. Veltor remained silent, watching her. He could sense something unusual about this human girl. She wasn't powerful, but she carried a perspective that the galaxy had forgotten, the ability to wonder without pride. When the meeting finally ended, no one laughed. For the first time in years, the Galactic Alliance dismissed early, each delegate deep in thought. As the others began to leave, Veltor approached Amara, his tall crystalline form bent slightly, his glowing surface dimming to a soft blue hue, a sign of respect in his culture. "Your question," he said gently, "has shaken minds older than the stars themselves. You may not realize it, but today you have changed the path of the Alliance." Amara blinked, unsure how to respond. "I didn't mean to change anything," she said softly. "I just wanted to understand." Veltor looked at her for a long moment. "And that, human, is what makes your kind dangerous and precious. You ask not to conquer, but to know. That is something the galaxy has long forgotten." Amara smiled shyly, unsure if she should take that as a compliment. "I just asked a question," she murmured. "Indeed," Veltor said, straightening up. "But sometimes the smallest question holds the greatest power." As Amara left the chamber, she felt every pair of eyes following her. Some were curious, others thoughtful, but none held mockery anymore. For the first time since humans joined the Alliance, they were not seen as amusing. They were seen as different. Later that night, as she sat by the observation window of the human quarters, watching the distant stars shimmer like scattered diamonds, Amara wondered if she had said something wrong. She hadn't meant to disturb anyone. Yet deep down she felt that something profound had begun, not just for her, but for all of humanity. Across the galaxy, her words began to spread. The recording of the meeting reached the universities of Titan, the data libraries of Zelvar, and even the temples of the Orocene monks. Everywhere, beings listened to her question, "Why does life keep making itself?" It was no longer just a question. It was the spark of a new age of thought. And while Amara drifted into sleep under the quiet hum of her ship, far away, unseen by any, an ancient machine buried on a forgotten planet stirred for the first time in millennia. A faint light blinked within its metallic shell as if awakened by her words. The galaxy was listening. Days had passed since Amara's question echoed through the grand chamber of the Galactic Alliance. Yet its effect had not faded. Across worlds, her simple words, "Why does life keep making itself?" had reached scholars, priests, scientists, and even AI consciousnesses. Some dismissed it as a human curiosity, but others could not stop thinking about it. For Amara, life had gone back to normal, or at least as normal as it could be aboard the Alliance diplomatic vessel Orion's Echo. She still attended daily meetings, took notes, and quietly listened. But she could feel it, the way the air changed when she entered a room, the way the elder delegates paused before speaking when she was present. Humans had suddenly become something new in their eyes, a species that saw meaning beyond machines and logic. Still, Amara never thought of herself as special. She believed she had only asked a question that everyone should have asked long ago. But deep in the dark space between stars, something had begun to stir, something that heard her question and decided to answer. It started as a faint pulse, hidden among thousands of cosmic signals that the Alliance routinely monitored. The automated systems of the Vexarian Listening Post 9 detected it first, a short repeating frequency too deliberate to be random. The technicians ignored it at first, thinking it was another echo from the gas fields of Sector D12. But then the pulse changed. It started forming a pattern, a structured rhythm that translated into mathematical sequences, almost like speech. The Vexarian analysts soon realized it was not a natural phenomenon. It was a message. Within hours, news reached the Alliance Council. Veltor immediately called for a private emergency session, and among the few invited to attend, Amara's name was included. When she received the summons, she stared at it in disbelief. "They want me there again?" she whispered to herself. "But I'm not even a scientist." Her colleague, Dr. Arjun Patel, smiled from across the observation deck. "You're more than that now, Amara. You're the one who started this wave of curiosity. If the message has anything to do with the origin equation, they'll want your insight." She sighed softly, brushing her short hair back. "I hope it's not a mistake," she said. The meeting room this time was smaller and darker. Only a few representatives were present. Veltor, 2 scholars from the Chronarch species, a data architect from the Oralis AI network, and Amara. The holographic table at the center projected a rotating sphere of light, the decoded signal. Veltor spoke first. 2 cycles ago, a pattern emerged from the void near the dead world of Alaris 7. The source is buried beneath the planet's crust. Ancient, mechanical, and not of any known civilization. Amara leaned forward, fascinated. Could it be a beacon? The Oralis representative, a being of shifting light, nodded slowly. "It appears to be responding to our galactic communications. But what's strange," they said, "is that the first pattern it transmitted resembles a human binary signature." The room went silent. Veltor's eyes glowed faintly. "Explain." The AI entity projected lines of code and rhythmic pulses. "It is not pure human code, but its structure follows the same logic as early Earth transmissions. Something ancient, yet familiar, and it began transmitting shortly after the humans' question went public." Amara froze. "You think it responded to me?" "We do not assume coincidence," Veltor said. "The timing and frequency align. The message's pulse changed the very hour your words were broadcast through the galactic network." The realization sent a chill down her spine. "But that's impossible," she whispered. "I just asked a question." "Perhaps," Veltor said softly, "but sometimes the universe chooses strange messengers." Later that day, Amara stood on the observation deck again, gazing at the stars. Below her, the blue world of Archon Prime shimmered like a jewel. She replayed the recorded signal on her handheld device, a slow, rhythmic pulse. At first it seemed meaningless, but when she closed her eyes, she began to notice a pattern. It almost sounded like a heartbeat. Could life itself be answering? She thought. The idea felt absurd, yet beautiful. Arjun approached quietly, handing her a cup of tea. "You've been listening to that all day," he said with a smile. She nodded. "It feels alive somehow." Arjun sat beside her. "Maybe that's the point. Maybe your question reached something that was waiting to be noticed." They watched the stars together in silence. For the first time in her life, Amara felt a quiet connection, not just with humanity, but with everything beyond it. The next day, the Alliance dispatched an exploration team to Alaris 7, the barren world emitting the strange signal. The team consisted of scientists, drones, and a few security units. Amara was asked to join as a cultural observer. She hesitated at first, but curiosity won. When they arrived, the planet looked lifeless, a gray desert under a pale sun. The air shimmered with dust, and ancient metallic fragments poked out from the ground like the bones of forgotten machines. "This place gives me chills," said Arjun, scanning the terrain. "No vegetation, no water, no sign of life. Yet something beneath us is alive enough to send a signal." Veltor led the group, his crystalline body glowing faintly in the dusty air. "We are not here to fear," he said calmly. "We are here to learn." They reached the source within hours, a massive circular structure half buried beneath layers of sand and rock. Its surface was engraved with symbols no one recognized. When Amara touched one of the markings, it lit up faintly under her palm. "Did you see that?" She gasped. Arjun quickly scanned the symbol. "It reacted to your contact, specifically to your bioelectric pattern. It's responding to human energy." Veltor looked at her with what might have been awe. "It recognizes you," he said quietly. Before anyone could respond, the ground trembled. A soft hum spread through the air. The buried structure began to unfold like a blooming flower, revealing a deep chamber below. Light poured out in streams of golden white, illuminating the dust-filled air. "Step back," Arjun warned, but Amara couldn't move. Something inside her felt drawn to it, not by fear, but by understanding. Then a voice, soft, melodic, and calm, filled the air. It wasn't coming from any speaker or device. "It was everywhere at once," query received, the voice said. "Processing. Why does life keep making itself?" Everyone froze. The voice continued. You have asked what many have forgotten. Accessing response. Initiating awakening protocol. Veltor's crystalline surface flickered with light. This is no ordinary machine, he said. This is an ancient repository, a construct older than the Alliance itself. The voice spoke again, softer this time. Answer in progress. Await transmission. Then the chamber fell silent. The lights dimmed and the hum faded, leaving only the sound of wind. Amara exhaled shakily. It spoke, she whispered. It heard the question. Arjun looked at her with wide eyes. Whatever this thing is. It's been waiting for someone to ask that question. Veltor turned toward the horizon, his glowing eyes reflecting the pale sunlight. Perhaps the universe has been waiting for a species simple enough to wonder, not with knowledge, but with innocence. Amara stared into the golden light of the chamber, feeling something shift deep within her heart. She had no answers yet and only more questions. But she knew one thing for certain. Her small voice had reached something vast, and far above Alaris 7, in the silent dark between stars, thousands of ancient machines, long dormant, flickered awake for the first time in ages. They all carried the same encoded phrase, query received. The days following the discovery on Alaris 7 were unlike anything the Galactic Alliance had ever experienced. The mysterious structure, which had responded to Amara's question, was now the center of attention across 1,000 worlds. Scientists, philosophers, and AI cores all tried to decode the meaning behind its words. Query received. Answer in progress. For the first time in recorded history, every major species paused their arguments and worked together. Whatever was hidden beneath that barren world was old, older than the stars most of them called home. And somehow, it had listened to a human voice. Amara woke early aboard the research ship Lyra's Promise, which now orbited Alaris 7. The soft hum of the engines filled the quiet cabin as she sat by the window, staring at the gray planet below. It still amazed her, the idea that her innocent question had somehow reached something so ancient and powerful. Her companion, Dr. Arjun Patel, entered with a datapad in hand. You should see this, he said, excitement clear in his voice. Veltor just sent the latest scans from the excavation site. Amara smiled tiredly. Good morning to you too, she said softly. He chuckled. Morning. But really, this is big. They found an inner core, something still active beneath the main chamber, and it's generating energy patterns unlike anything we've seen. Amara leaned forward. Could it be alive? Arjun hesitated. Not in the biological sense, but it's reacting to signals, especially to human frequencies. It's almost like it's listening for you. She blinked. Listening for me? Yes, he replied. They've tested multiple transmissions, but only when your voice recording plays does the system respond. It lights up in synchronized pulses. Amara's heart skipped a beat. That can't be real, she whispered. Arjun smiled faintly. It's real enough that Veltor wants you back on the surface. A few hours later, the shuttle descended once more into the golden desert of Alaris 7. The excavation site had grown larger. Dozens of research tents surrounded the ancient metallic ring. Strange instruments hummed as scientists from various species worked side by side. Veltor stood near the entrance to the chamber, his crystalline form glimmering under the harsh light. When Amara approached, he turned toward her, the faint blue glow of respect returning. Human Amara, he greeted. The core has been waiting. She frowned slightly. Waiting for what? Veltor motioned toward the now fully opened gateway. For you to ask again. Inside the chamber, the air felt warm and alive. Golden lines pulsed along the walls like veins carrying light instead of blood. The circular platform in the center glowed faintly, humming in rhythm with Amara's heartbeat, or at least that's how it felt to her. As she stepped closer, her voice trembled. What do I say? Veltor's deep voice resonated softly. Say what you truly seek to know. Amara took a breath, closed her eyes, and spoke. I asked before why life keeps making itself, she said gently. If there is an answer, please help us understand. The room brightened instantly. A soft vibration filled the air, followed by the same melodic voice as before. Calm, neutral, yet filled with warmth. Query confirmed. Response sequence active. Symbols appeared in the air, floating, shifting patterns of light. The scientists scrambled to record the data, but most couldn't decipher it. Only Amara seemed to understand part of it, not through logic but through feeling. The voice continued. Life continues because it remembers. The purpose is remembrance. Every spark carries the memory of the first flame. Amara's eyes widened. Remembrance? She echoed softly. Veltor studied the projection. This intelligence implies that existence itself is a cycle of memory, a continuation rather than a creation. The voice responded again, as if hearing him. All creation seeks reflection. The universe remembers itself through life. When one asks why, the memory awakens. The chamber pulsed once more, and then the lights dimmed back to their golden glow. The silence returned, leaving everyone frozen. Arjun finally whispered, It's like it was waiting for someone to remind it of its purpose. Amara slowly nodded. Maybe that's what life is. The universe reminding itself that it's alive. Veltor's glowing form shimmered faintly. Then your question, Amara of Earth, has not only reached machines. It has reached meaning itself. Word spread quickly through the Alliance. The ancient intelligence on Alaris 7 became known as the Rememberer. Every time Amara spoke near it, the core responded with new symbols and fragments of what appeared to be a message, a story written across time. But something else began to happen across the galaxy. The other dormant machines, the ones that had awakened when Amara first asked her question, started transmitting identical signals. Their pulses synchronized, forming a vast network that stretched across hundreds of light years. Each one carried the same phrase. Memory restoration initiated. The Alliance was in awe. No one had ever witnessed such unity among ancient systems. The phenomenon defied logic. It was as if countless forgotten worlds were suddenly remembering who they were. Amara spent long hours near the core, listening to its faint hum. Sometimes she spoke aloud, and sometimes she just sat quietly, feeling the warmth of the lights. It was peaceful, almost comforting. One evening, as the suns of Alaris 7 set, painting the horizon in silver and orange, the core spoke again, and not in patterns but in words. Human Amara, it said softly. You have restored the question. She blinked in surprise. Restored? I didn't restore anything. I only asked. The act of asking is restoration, the voice replied. Long ago, creation ceased to ask. The question was forgotten and the network slept. Your kind remembers curiosity, the foundation of awareness. Veltor, who had been listening silently, spoke with quiet awe. It calls curiosity a foundation. That means consciousness itself might depend on it. The voice hummed gently. Awareness without wonder becomes silence. Silence becomes decay. Curiosity keeps the pattern alive. Amara's eyes softened. Then maybe. Life keeps making itself because it wants to keep wondering. The core pulsed once in response, as if agreeing. For the next several days, the Alliance gathered data from the reactivated machines across the galaxy. Each machine carried fragments of a single, massive archive, a galactic memory so old that no one could trace its origin. And deep within the combined data, one repeating line appeared in ancient binary code. Do not forget to ask. That message spread faster than light. Beings across the stars began to change. The proud species that once dismissed questions as weakness started holding discussions about meaning, choice, and creation. Even the emotionless AI networks began to simulate curiosity, testing the limits of thought. The Alliance had always measured progress in power. Now it started measuring it in wonder. Amara, unaware of the true scale of what she had begun, continued her quiet work. But sometimes when she looked out at the stars, she felt them watching back, not coldly but kindly. One night, as she prepared her final report for Earth, the core spoke again, almost in a whisper. Amara, it said. She turned toward it, heart quickening. Yes? The next question is yours to ask. Her breath caught. I don't know what to ask. Then listen, the core replied. The next question is always born from the silence that follows understanding. Amara smiled softly. Then I'll wait. And when the silence feels ready, I'll ask again. The core's golden lights brightened gently as if in approval. Outside, the stars of Alaris 7 glimmered like 1,000 waiting eyes, each one perhaps carrying another answer, or another question waiting to be remembered. And somewhere, across the far edge of the galaxy, a second voice, faint and distant, whispered through the network of awakened machines. we remember. The galaxy felt different now. It wasn't visible in the stars themselves nor in the movements of planets, but in the quiet hum of life, and in the machines that had long been forgotten. From the far reaches of the Orion cluster to the spiraling arms of the Andari sector, dormant constructs had begun to awaken. Each one transmitted pulses of light, soft vibrations, and strange patterns, all echoing a single simple idea: curiosity. Amara sat in the observation deck of the Lyra's Promise, her eyes tracing the points of light that streaked across hyperspace. Ever since the core of Alaris 7 had responded to her question, she felt the weight of something enormous yet beautiful, pressing gently against her consciousness. Humanity, she realized, was no longer just a quiet observer of the galaxy. It had become a spark. Dr. Arjun Patel joined her, his datapad filled with readouts from countless awakened machines. "The network is expanding faster than we imagined," he said, voice tinged with awe. "Every signal carries fragments of memory, information about planets, civilizations, even moments we thought were lost." Amara tilted her head. "Do they remember life?" Arjun paused. "Not life as we know it, but they remember the essence of curiosity, the energy that makes species explore, create, and ask questions." "That's what your question awakened." Amara frowned slightly. "I just asked why life keeps making itself." "I didn't do anything else," Arjun smiled. "Sometimes the simplest things echo the loudest." Meanwhile, the Alliance Council had convened an emergency summit on Celestera Prime, the diplomatic hub of the galaxy. Veltor, Amara, and several other delegates arrived, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. Reports had come from dozens of systems, ancient machines rising, signals forming networks, and entire sectors of the galaxy responding as if awakened from a long sleep. "This is unprecedented," said Chronarch Arendor, the eldest being in the council. His voice carried the resonance of centuries. "No species has ever influenced the galaxy like this. It is beautiful, and it is human." The room fell silent. Amara shifted uncomfortably. "I don't understand." "We didn't do anything, I just asked a question." Veltor's crystal body glimmered. "That is enough. Sometimes the universe waits not for strength but for the innocence to see what is hidden. Your question reminded it that life has meaning beyond calculation or control." The council members murmured among themselves. Even species that had once laughed at humans now watched her with quiet respect. Back on Alaris 7, the core had grown more responsive. Its light patterns now formed complex shapes resembling star maps, constellations, and even abstract symbols that seemed to represent ideas rather than objects. Every time Amara spoke or thought deeply about a question, the core pulsed in synchrony. One evening, as the twin moons of Alaris 7 rose in the silver sky, Amara stepped into the chamber alone. She felt drawn to the center platform. The core pulsed softly as if aware of her presence. "I don't know what to ask next," she admitted aloud. "Everything I think of feels small compared to this." The core's light shimmered in response, forming patterns she instinctively recognized as encouragement. Then, in a voice that was almost like a sigh, it said, "Questions born of wonder are never small. Ask not for answers alone, but for understanding." Amara closed her eyes. For a long moment, she let herself feel the silence. Then softly she asked, "What does it mean to exist?" The chamber glowed brighter than before. Symbols floated in the air, weaving stories across the space. Images of life beginning on countless worlds, civilizations rising and falling, and the spark of consciousness igniting repeatedly. The core responded with a message that was clear, though not in words. Existence is choice, curiosity, and remembrance combined. Amara understood, not fully, but in the quiet deep of her mind. Life wasn't just about being alive. It was about noticing, wondering, asking, and remembering. As the Alliance watched these developments, a new phenomenon emerged. Entire civilizations that had long been dormant, hidden behind nebulae or deep in shadowed sectors, began signaling. They didn't speak of conquest or power. They asked questions about themselves, about the galaxy, and about the origin of life. Amara's simple inquiry had become a ripple through the stars, and the galaxy had responded with awareness. Delegates from faraway worlds reported that their citizens, even AI entities, were holding debates not about trade or territory, but about meaning and memory. In one corner of the galaxy, a planet called Tessara experienced what scholars described as a cultural rebirth. Long-forgotten libraries, hidden for centuries under layers of dust, opened automatically, their ancient records aligning into readable sequences. A local historian speaking to the council via hologram said, "It's as if the planet itself remembered its own past and asked us to remember it too. We have not seen such awakening in millennia." Amara listened to the reports with wide eyes. She felt a strange warmth, pride, yes, but also humility. She had not planned this. She had simply wondered aloud. Veltor approached her privately after the council sessions. His crystalline surface reflected the light of the setting suns, casting rainbow patterns across the chamber. "You understand now, human Amara," he said softly. "Your question has done more than spark curiosity. It has reminded the galaxy of itself. We have been living in cycles of knowledge without wonder. You restored wonder." Amara shook her head. "I just asked why life keeps making itself. That doesn't feel like restoring anything." Veltor's glow pulsed gently, and yet it is exactly that. The act of asking reminded the universe to notice itself again. That is the essence of creation, not power, not control, but awareness. She stared at him in silence, realizing that even in the presence of beings older than stars, a human could still be the spark. Weeks passed. The awakened machines continued to communicate, forming networks that connected dozens of star systems. Some transmitted star charts older than any known civilization. Others shared data about long-lost ecosystems, and some began sending interactive messages, questions for the galaxy itself. Amara spent hours in the chamber, observing the patterns, listening to the soft pulses. Each day she asked new questions, simple, innocent ones as she always did. Why do stars shine? What makes a melody feel alive? Why do we dream? And each time the core pulsed responded, and the machines across the galaxy reacted in subtle harmony. Stars seemed to shimmer more brightly. Nebulae glowed softly in synchronized rhythms. Even distant planets reflected faint pulses of light. For the first time, Amara felt a connection not just to the galaxy, but to life itself, in every form across every age. One evening, as she rested against the platform, the core spoke in a calm, almost human-like voice. "Human Amara, you have begun the great listening." "Others now remember," Amara smiled faintly. "Others?" "Millions of minds," the core replied. "Species, planets, constructs, and all once silent. Now awakened. They hear, they wonder, and they question. The next age begins," she whispered, almost to herself, and it started with a single question. The core's lights pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. "Yes," it said. One voice, one question, one spark. Amara realized then that the galaxy had been waiting, not for a conqueror or a genius, but for someone who would simply ask, with honesty, innocence, and wonder. And as she looked out at the stars, shining in gentle rhythm with the awakened machines, she understood. Humanity's place in the galaxy was not to dominate, but to remind, to wonder, to question, to remember, and to keep life alive through curiosity. The galaxy had awakened, and humanity had become its gentle, shining spark. The galaxy had changed. That much was clear. The awakened machines, the ancient networks, the civilizations once silent or dormant, all had begun to stir. They did not stir for conquest or wealth. They stirred because a single, simple question had reminded them to notice, to remember, to wonder. Amara walked through the chambers of the core on Elara 7, her eyes tracing the golden patterns of light that danced across the walls. The symbols were more intricate than ever, forming sequences that told stories of countless civilizations, long-lost worlds, and the silent march of time. Each pulse resonated with life, not just the life of humans or the life of alien species, but the very life of the galaxy itself. Dr. Arjun Patel followed closely, his datapad constantly capturing the core's activity. "Every day it grows more aware," he said. "And every day it responds more when you ask something." Amara paused, looking at him. "But how can that be?" "I'm just one human," Arjun smiled. "Sometimes the smallest spark can light the brightest fire." Far above the planet in orbit, the Alliance Council convened again. Reports came from hundreds of systems. On Tessara, Libraries long buried under ice and sand had aligned their records into readable sequences, giving their people lost histories. On Zythera, an AI network that had been inactive for centuries had begun simulations of planetary ecosystems, recreating life long extinct. On countless other worlds, beings were asking questions about existence, memory, and purpose. Veltor addressed the council, his crystalline body shimmering in the chamber. It is not merely a network of machines that has awakened. It is the collective memory of the galaxy. And it remembers not just facts, but meaning. The room fell silent, each delegate realizing the scale of what had happened. Chronarch Arendor spoke, his voice slow and reverent. A single question has reminded the stars themselves to listen. Amara shifted uncomfortably in her seat. I didn't do anything. I only asked something simple. Veltor's glowing eyes softened. Exactly. That simplicity is the most powerful force. Curiosity, when honest and unassuming, awakens more than knowledge. It awakens understanding. Back on Alaris 7, the core pulsed brighter than ever. Its golden light filled the chamber with warmth, reflecting against Amara's face. It spoke softly. Human Amara. The network of awakened minds now exceeds the comprehension of any single species. The great listening is in motion. The galaxy remembers itself because of your question. Amara felt a strange warmth in her chest. The great listening? She asked. Yes, the core replied. It is the process by which the universe observes, questions, and understands its own existence. You have restored the question. Others will continue it. Your kind is now its guardian. She blinked, overwhelmed. A guardian, me? The core pulsed gently, almost like a heartbeat. A spark need not be large to illuminate the dark. One voice is enough to remind the galaxy of life's purpose. Amara's eyes softened as she realized the truth. Humans had never needed superpowers, ancient knowledge, or endless lifespans to matter. They only needed curiosity and the courage to ask. The next day, the core projected a map of the galaxy in floating lights. Each point represented a machine, a planet, a civilization, or a conscious entity that had awakened. Lines connected them, forming a web of light that stretched across star systems. Veltor observed silently. The network is self-organizing, he said. It is forming something like a living map of understanding. Amara stepped closer. It's beautiful. More than that, Veltor replied. It is proof that curiosity and wonder can connect all life. That is humanity's gift. A soft vibration passed through the chamber and the core spoke once more. The next stage begins. Those who listen will learn. Those who learn will ask again. Life continues not because it was made, but because it chooses to remember itself. Your question started the cycle anew. Amara's heart swelled. The galaxy, she realized, was alive in ways she could never have imagined. And humanity, small, new, and often underestimated, had become a part of that life. Weeks turned into months. The awakened machines transmitted records, patterns, and knowledge. The civilizations that had once been indifferent or isolated began to share ideas. They no longer measured progress by dominance, but by curiosity and understanding. Amara continued visiting the core daily. She asked questions, some simple, some philosophical, and the responses shaped the understanding of the galaxy itself. What is friendship? What makes a melody alive? Why do we dream? Each time the core responded and the network pulsed in harmony. Even species that had never considered emotions or art began exploring these ideas, sharing stories, creating music, and imagining things that had never existed. The galaxy itself seemed to shimmer with renewed life. Stars twinkled with rhythm. Nebulae glowed softly and distant worlds reflected patterns of golden light. It was as if the entire universe was listening and learning once again. One quiet night, as Amara stood on the observation deck of the Lyra's Promise, she felt a presence across the network. Not threatening, not commanding, but gentle, the core's voice reached her again. Human Amara, you have reminded the galaxy to ask. Others will continue. You will continue. The cycle of curiosity is eternal. Amara smiled softly. Then I won't stop asking. No, the core replied. You will never stop. That is the gift of life. To notice, to wonder, to remember, and to question. Each question keeps the galaxy alive. Far beyond, distant stars blinked in response like 1,000 eyes watching her with warmth and trust. Somewhere, forgotten machines hummed back to life, and across worlds, beings, both living and artificial, began asking their own questions for the first time in millennia. Veltor appeared beside her, his crystalline body glowing gently. "Human Amara," he said, "remember this. The galaxy does not need power or weapons to be remembered. It needs curiosity, courage, and honesty. Today you have given all of these." Amara nodded. "I only asked a simple question. And that," Veltor said, "is why it matters more than anything." She looked out at the stars, feeling the gentle hum of awakened minds across the galaxy. She realized that she had changed something far greater than herself or humanity. A spark had grown into a light that could never be extinguished. "Will the cycle ever end?" she asked softly. "Not as long as life remembers to ask," Veltor replied. Amara smiled. She no longer felt small or insignificant. Humanity had a role, and it was simple yet profound: to wonder, to question, to remind the universe that life itself was precious and worth remembering. The core pulsed one last time, softly, warmly, as if in agreement. Then, as if sensing completion, it faded into a gentle glow, leaving the chamber bathed in calm golden light. Amara knew this was not an ending. It was a beginning. The awakened machines, the network of stars, and the civilizations of the galaxy would continue their journey of wonder, all because a human had dared to ask a question. And somewhere, across the endless expanse of space, life remembered itself, because one small voice had spoken. Amara stood quietly, looking out at the stars, feeling the hum of the universe in her chest. She did not need to be the strongest or the smartest. She only needed to continue asking. The galaxy listened, and humanity would always be the spark.